public access to this meeting does not ensure that there will be public participation unless required by law. This meeting will not have a public comment except in connection with any hearing that is on the agenda. We do have on the agenda a minor modification request from Needham Gateway LLC regarding property at 100 and 120 Highland Avenue. And as it is a minor modification request to an existing site plan decision, it will be treated as a hearing, and we will take public comment if members of the public so desire. First, we will confirm that we have a quorum of the members of the planning board present. When I call your name, please respond. And then I will introduce the planning department and other town staff. Marty Jacobs.
Present.
Adam Block.
Present.
Natasha Espada.
Present.
Jean McKnight is not present this evening, but I, the chair, Paul Alpert, am here. So we have 4 of the 5 members present. We have a quorum. Planning board, town staff and planning department. We have our planning director, Lee Newman.
Present.
And our assistant planning director, Alexandra Klee.
Present.
And that is it for the town staff who are participating as members of the meeting. As each agenda item is reached, I will introduce participants who are here to present or discuss projects and proposals. For those participating in the meeting, please also be aware that others may be able to see you and hear you. Anything that you share or state will be a matter of public record. All supporting materials for this meeting, including the agenda, are available on the town's website, www.needhamma.gov, unless otherwise noted. The ground rules for this meeting are designed to allow for an accurate public record. Each of the speakers on our agenda will be introduced. After speakers conclude their remarks, each board member will be asked by name for any comment, questions, or motions. All votes will be by roll call. For each participant, please remember to state your name for the record before speaking. For each person from the public who is recognized to speak, please remember to state your name and address for the record before speaking. That concludes the introductory remarks. And we get to our first agenda item. We have a request for a minor modification. This is scheduled for 7:20 p.m. It is now 7:23. So we are relatively right on time. This is regarding major project site plan special permit number 2005-07, Needham Gateway LLC. Is the petitioner with regard to property located at 100 and 120 Highland Avenue, Needham, Massachusetts. And people are popping up on the screen. We have the panelists who are now joining us. Rick Mann is the attorney for the petitioner, and Mike Moskowitz is the manager of Needham Gateway LLC, the petitioner. So with that, Mr. Mann, Attorney Mann, I turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Pardon me. As indicated, my name is Rick Mann. I'm an attorney representing Needham Gateway LLC, which is the operator of the Needham Gateway Center. With me tonight is Mike Moskowitz, who is hiding, I believe, but he will be showing shortly. And Mike is the manager of the LLC. We're before you tonight seeking a minor modification of the special permit site plan approval that was granted for this center back in 2006 and has been amended a number of times since. Pursuant to Section 7 of the zoning bylaw, and particularly Section 4.2 of that special permit decision, a modification to the exterior of the site requires approval of the planning board. An approval that the applicant fully acknowledges should have been obtained before the additional enclosure and dumpsters, which are the subject of this hearing this evening, were located in the center. Mr. Moskowitz will speak to that issue more directly in a moment. Before then, let me set the background a little bit further. The special permit decision initially approved the installation of a single 6-foot high outdoor dumpster enclosure near the center of the parking lot, as shown on the approved site plan. And we actually did submit with our application a site plan that shows that location. It became rather quickly apparent that the volume of trash, both organic and non-organic, was overwhelming that single dumpster, and it required an inordinate number of visits, indeed twice the number of normal visits for the trash disposal contractor. As a result, the applicant installed 3 additional dumpsters within an enclosure that was supposed to be and is only for cardboard products, no organic product whatsoever, and located the enclosure along the rear of the building at 100 Highland Avenue, again, as shown on that site plan submitted with this application. The enclosure for the additional dumpsters measures approximately 11 feet by 16 feet with a height of 6 feet, and is composed of similar materials to the fencing material that is currently on site. The additional dumpsters have indeed resulted in far fewer required visits by the trash contractor and have facilitated the maintenance of a clean, a vermin-free, and environmentally responsible shopping center. To ensure the proper installation and utilization of the additional dumpsters, the applicant has adopted a regulation applicable to all of the tenants of the center, prohibiting the use of those additional dumpsters for anything except the disposal of cardboard products. In other words, it is a default under the terms of the lease for anyone to use those dumpsters for any other purpose. Additionally, the contract with the trash disposal contractor prohibits the use of those dumpsters for anything except the disposal of cardboard products. Based on the foregoing, we respectfully request that the Planning Board approve the installation and maintenance of these additional dumpsters and the enclosure as a minor modification to that special permit decision. Before I close, however, I would like Mike Moskowitz to address the issue of why the situation has occurred in the first place. Mike? Mike, if you're talking, you're muted.
There we go. Sorry. So first and foremost, I want to apologize to the planning board and the abutters for adding the cardboard dumpsters without first applying to the planning board for approval. This failure was based on my ignorance of the requirement for planning board approval. As Rick mentioned before, the need for the cardboard recycling dumpsters was realized soon after all tenants in the center opened for business. Initially, the cardboard was placed in the trash compactor in the middle of the parking lot. The amount of cardboard that was placed in that trash dumpster quickly filled up the dumpster, which required 2 extra pickups of the trash dumpster per week. The truck that empties the compactor makes much more noise than the truck that empties the cardboard dumpsters, as the noisy truck lifts the dumpster to the top of the truck and turns the dumpster upside down and shakes a little bit to put the trash into the truck. Whereas the cardboard dumpsters are picked up more by like a regular trash truck, like a City of Boston trash truck, and makes very little noise. In order to empty the cardboard dumpsters, they are rolled out of the corral and emptied in front of the FW web store. And in regard to an issue that was raised by one of the abutters regarding the construction dumpsters, I just want to point out there are only 2 businesses moving into the vacant spaces, not 3. I certainly can and will agree not to put any construction dumpsters along the property line that directly abuts the Highland Terrace homes. Thank you.
With that, I would turn the matter over back to the chair and thank you very much for your time and attention. If there are any questions, obviously, we'd be happy to answer them.
Okay. Before I call on the other planning board members, I am going to relay and read into the record the communications that we have had with regard to this matter. I believe there are 3. First, we have the letter from David Roach, our building commissioner, addressed to Mr. Moskowitz, dated December 10, 2021. Dear sir, please be advised that I have received a complaint about additional dumpsters that were placed on the site. According to the approved site plan, the only location that is approved for dumpsters is the enclosure in the middle of the parking lot. It also appears that sections of the fence surrounding the property may have been damaged in some of the recent storms that occurred in Needham. Upon receipt of this notice, please remove the additional unauthorized dumpsters and please have any damaged fence repaired. If you want to add additional dumpsters, you will need to apply to the planning board for an amendment to the site plan, but they must be removed until you receive that approval. Please contact my office with a removal date or any questions that you may have about this notice. Thank you for your cooperation. We also have a letter from the Public Works Department signed by Thomas Ryder, acting town engineer, dated February 3, 2022. The Department of Public Works has completed its review of the above referenced request minor modification to a special permit. And the bottom line is we have no comment or objection to the proposed modification. And lastly, we have an email response from Tara Gurge of the Needham Public Health Department. Ms. Gurge is the Assistant Public Health Director. And she writes, the Public Health Division conducted the review of the Needham Gateway project, adding additional recycling dumpsters on site. And we have no comment to share at this time. This was dated Thursday, February 10. So this was just last Thursday. That's it for the, and we have an email. We have an email from one of the neighbors, from Elizabeth Kaponva. I hope I pronounced that correctly. I apologize if I didn't. She raises some of the issues that I think Mr. Moskowitz has already spoken to, but we will get to that as we get to the public comment side of this. Before we get started, Mr. Moskowitz, I would like to know what steps you took in response to Mr. Roach's letter of December 10, which is now more than 2 months ago, advising you that the dumpsters needed to be removed until you got our permission to have them.
So just first, the fence was repaired immediately. It was actually a section of fence that is on the other side of our row of trees that abuts Highland Terrace. So there was actually no way for us to have seen that until we did like fall cleanup. So that fence was immediately repaired. In regards to the letter, I believe that Rick Mann spoke to Dave Roach, and we told him we were going to apply to planning board, and whatever the decision is, we would take care of it at that time. So here we are applying.
So Rick, did Dave tell you that it was okay to keep the dumpsters at the location?
I have to say, Paul, that I don't recall that he actually said that one way or the other, but it was clear that we were going to, we were in a position where we had to continue to use it as a practical matter. We certainly did not represent, or I certainly did not represent, that we were going to terminate the use.
Let me call on other planning board members to see if they have any comments. Mr. Block.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I attended the site this morning and conducted a visual inspection and found that, in fact, although you were instructed very clearly by the building commissioner more than 60 days ago to remove those dumpsters, that they in fact have not been removed prior to your seeking approval for an adjustment. And I also had an opportunity to observe the condition of and took photos, which I'm happy to display. It's not quite in the same orderly condition that I think we saw in our packets. I do appreciate that you had good signage that said cardboard only, no food. You had additional signage that said to flatten the boxes. I observed that there may have been some food in those dumpsters nevertheless, and certainly the boxes were not flattened. But my biggest concern overall is that the site of these dumpsters is less than 15 feet away from the property line of a residence. And this is a very odd circumstance where we have, this commercial building right next to a fairly dense residential neighborhood. And there are a lot of multifamilies, 2 families in that neighborhood. And I understand and appreciate that you have a higher need for rubbish removal of various kinds, more than what might have been the case previously at the time of your original special permit. And yet I really believe that this is the wrong location for any kind of dumpster at all. And I strongly oppose preserving those dumpsters where they are. I can pull up the site plan that we have in our packet to share the screen, if you permit, Mr. Chair.
Sure, I think that's a great idea.
So, permit me one moment. Well, I just go to share a screen. So are you able to see my screen and the site plan?
Not yet,
No.
Adam.
No.
Oh, coming on. There we go.
So this is the present location where my cursor is. And the house is here. And the distance from the dumpster itself to the lot line for the residential neighbor next door is less than 15 feet using the scale here that you've provided. What I would say is there is an absolute need. It's a clear demonstration that there is a need for additional rubbish removal, in particular for cardboard boxes and perhaps other items, but certainly for cardboard boxes. And by doing this, I would recommend that we move them either to this location. I should have done this in a box instead of an oval, but it looks like if we were to put it somewhere over here, we're occupying 3 spaces, maybe up to 4. Or we could put it over here, which is, I think, a more appropriate location. This is my preferred location, but again, we could put it, over here. And I say that for a number of reasons. You've got over 20 feet, I think 25, maybe 30 feet, where the trash company is here. They come in the middle, I don't know what hours they currently have them under contract. And they remove and they wheel, which is not a quiet thing, each dumpster one at a time down the walkway to the curb. And then the truck picks up the dumpster, rattles it, and then slams it down on the walkway, and then they roll it back. None of that is a quiet experience. And they do that 3 times. And I will propose that we grant permission and relief for you to have those 3 dumpsters, but that it will be that the trash be picked up between 8 o'clock in the morning or 9 o'clock in the morning, and not after 5 or 6 o'clock in the evening. And that it be located elsewhere on the site, either here or here. And another note, I had a conversation with a resident who owns a house in this area, And she described to me a scenario where over the last period of time, there have been people that have come in, known that this dumpster was accessible. And at around 4:30 in the morning, they're opening up the dumpster and dumping in a lot of stuff, a lot of garbage. That could have been cured with a lock. And someone on site could have removed the lock during the day for reasonable hours for allowing tenants to be able to access that. But nevertheless, that was never thought of. It wasn't done. I think it represents a tremendous nuisance to the area residents. It can also attract rodents, mice, or rats, notwithstanding your good intention of having it be cardboard only. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's always cardboard only. I adamantly oppose this location, and yet I adamantly support the need and seek to do it in either of these locations that I've mentioned. And with that, I return to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Adam. Mr. Waskowitz, the dumpster that's in the middle of the parking lot, is that area locked and secure?
No, it's not.
It's not. Have you had a problem with people dumping their trash in your dumpsters?
No, we've had no issue with, as far as we know, with any of the two sets of dumpsters with people putting trash in.
And how do you monitor your tenants to make sure that they're only putting cardboard into the cardboard dumpsters?
Well, I check it periodically. Every time I've checked it, I've only seen cardboard, and yes, the tenants do not always cut the boxes down. It's required. It's posted in there. And when I find unflattened boxes, it's clear who they come from, and I notify the tenant. And I just wanted to make one. I'm not just as far as the setback, and I understand Adam's comments, but the entire setback, which is covered with the red location of the dumpster. So the setback from the fence to the building is 24 feet, and it's a 6-foot sidewalk. So it's more like 18 feet, which is not a big difference, but I just wanted to point that out.
I also believe,
yes, Rick.
Mr. Chair, just one minor point. I believe, Mike, your contractor's agreement requires or basically precludes them from picking up anything other than cardboard. In other words, they would have a right to complain to you as a result of that because they're recycling that cardboard.
That's correct. And by the way, I know it's brought up the hours. So I believe there's a sign in each corral that says the driver should not pick up the trash before 8:30. It's either 8:30 or 9 o'clock or whatever. And it's certainly not picked up ever after 5 o'clock. It's picked up during the day.
Ms. Espada, do you have any questions or comments?
I do. I feel similarly to Adam. I'm just going to share really quickly my screen here. What I'm understanding is that this is the location of the allowed dumpster. This is the location of the current dumpster, the current additional. And so I'm with Adam. I mean, there's a reason why this is located in that location. So expanding this in either direction to work with the parking and the traffic would be advisable. I think I understand that you have more trash and more recycling than when probably this happened, but I just think this is right next to this house. And I agree with Adam that this location is probably advisable.
May I make just one comment about the relocation? I think, Adam, you indicated that would wipe out 3, maybe even 4 parking spaces. That, frankly, is of concern to me, and particularly in light of the fact that we hope to be, before you in 30 days to try to get approval of 2 additional tenants that will bring us back to full occupancy. I would like to think that there's another way that we can accommodate those concerns without taking up 4 parking spaces. I'm not sure that there is, but I want to at least raise that question. You had, can you put back the plan, that Natasha, that you just had up?
Sorry, I'm looking. Okay. So I have a question. This is not a parking space right now, right? So could it expand in this direction? And so, I mean,
I had the same question, Natasha. Is that possible, Mike?
Well, it won't fit 3 cardboard dumpsters in that little area there.
so this has 3 dumpsters right here on a 6-foot sidewalk?
No, it's an 11 by 16 corral. The sidewalk is 6 feet, but if you look at the one that Adam put up before, right where your cursor is, under that tree, the dumpster, goes to, there's an L in the building.
So it's even closer to them, probably.
No. In other words, it's
Over here?
It's 18 feet or whatever from the fence, from the property line. And then the 11 must be, the 16 must be, 16 is the dimension as we're looking at it from left to right. And the 11 feet is from top to bottom. So there's 6 feet on the sidewalk, and then, right, there's another 11 feet
Right here.
to the
Right,
right, under that tree.
Right, but look at this house, it's right next to it, and it's I don't know, my thought is similar to Adam, and I don't know, Marty, if you have any similar thoughts or.
Well, when you're done, I've got a few questions.
I'm finished.
Okay, so on that point, I'm a little perturbed, I must say, when I look at the as-built plan that, can everybody pull the as-built plan up? That was part of your application here.
That's this.
Yeah, so what perturbs me is I understand, Rick, that you're saying the nearest corner of that red square where the new cardboard dumpster area is 18 feet from the boundary line.
I didn't say that, Mike. I just, for the record, that was Mike.
It was me. It was
Okay,
me.
Mike did, I'm sorry. What bothers me is that neighboring lot, Roman, now formerly of Roman Company, it doesn't give any indication at all where the nearest house is. And it really should, to give us a sense of what the problem is. I don't know, how far is that house set back from the sideline there? Is it 10?
I tried to look it up today on the town website, but the property record cards don't seem to list the building, the dimensions of the building on the lot.
Okay.
We can measure it off GIS, but the point is, Marty, it's similarly of that corner to the fence over here. The building is somewhere around here, similarly about 15 feet at most from the fence.
Well, so this plan doesn't give us any indication that there's any residences there. And that bothers me. So yes, I'm concerned that cardboard dumpster area is awfully close to the nearest residence. And I'm sure it's noisy when it's being emptied. So that to me clearly is a problem. I think the question of monitoring what goes into that dumpster, I understand Mr. Moskowitz says, he checks it periodically, but I don't know what that means. Is it daily? Is it hourly? Is it weekly? I don't know what that means. But if in fact that area and those dumpsters are not locked and anybody has access to them, that is an additional problem, it seems to me. And as far as what time of day are these dumpsters being emptied, I understand what Mr. Moskowitz says, that he thinks they're being emptied between 8:30 and 5. I haven't been there. I don't know, but I don't know whether we're going to have neighbors who will say otherwise, but we'll see what they say. And then sort of the other thing is just a question whether wherever these dumpsters are, if you're trying to monitor what goes in there and what doesn't go in there, I guess my question is, can these be locked? Is there a way? I mean, I'm not looking to add extraordinary expense to Mr. Moskowitz's situation, but can these be locked? Can the surrounding fencing, the corral, be locked, or can the dumpsters themselves be locked? And I guess that's an issue, whether these dumpsters stay where they are or whether they get moved somewhere else on site. But you know, it wouldn't be the first time if somebody said, well, yeah, people are coming off site, not tenants, and they're loading up these dumpsters with cardboard or non-cardboard or whatever at 4 o'clock in the morning. I mean, I certainly wouldn't be shocked or surprised by that. So I don't know. So those are the things that are swirling in my head right now. Thank you.
Mike, can you respond to Marty's question, though, as to whether or not you could lock up the enclosure?
Yes, they can be locked at night.
Yeah.
Okay.
Again, we had no evidence of people putting trash in off hours, you know, in the middle of the night, but I'm happy to institute a lock program.
Okay. Thank you.
Natasha, can you put back up that overview that you showed us? That's great. So I have frequented some of your tenants, so I've been in the parking lot. And I know how the traffic flow is, because you're coming in from 2nd Avenue. The current dumpsters, which are really in the best location for regular trash, which was why we had in our original special permit decision that it be located there. It is kind of right as you're coming in, and it can be difficult to find a parking space. I'm thinking that in my mind, the best location for these dumpsters is in the back of the lot. And I can't control the hour. Yes, right there. I think that's a better location. It only takes away parking spaces. That's much farther away from the tenants. It's much farther away from the houses, especially if you have it closer to 2nd Avenue. And it will be a lot easier, I think, for the truck to access it, especially during business hours, when the parking lot, and people want to park as close to your tenants as possible. So the spaces are much more likely to be freed up, and the access to it, I think, will be a lot better for the pickup, and won't disturb the neighbors as much if it's placed in that area in the back of the lot and as close to 2nd Avenue as possible. So that's my preference. And And with that, are there any other comments from the planning board, or shall I ask if people in attendance would like to speak?
I just, Paul, if I could just say one thing, just to make sure the board is aware that this property is currently operating under parking waivers that have been granted because the existing parking lot has not been large enough to service the uses. So to the extent that parking gets eliminated here that was previously approved, that's going to require parking waivers to be granted, and that's going to require a public hearing and notice.
Yeah, and that's partly what I was referring to as well, Lee. I think these issues are create other issues, but we could presumably, well, I guess it's a question, could we, we're seeking modifications in the 2 special permit applications that we have filed that are on for March 15. I suppose we could amend that to provide for this additional reduction in parking without jeopardizing the hearing date. I guess that's the critical question.
I think you probably could. I think those were noticed with parking waivers embedded in them. Am I
They
correct?
weren't noticed yet. They weren't
Oh, they
noticed
weren't
yet.
noticed yet? Okay, well then,
They
yes,
weren't
we
noticed
could
yet.
even, that would even be cleaner.
That sounds very good, very reasonable. So for those who are in attendance and who would like to speak, there is a raise hand button on your screen. And so if you wish to speak, please raise your hand. I see that we already have one hand raised, so if you call on that person. And then other people, if you wish to speak, please raise your hand and we will call on you. So,
You want to?
so Alex, if you would, oh, you've already started. Please bring in Ms. Caponia. And I hope I pronounced your name correctly. And as soon as you can log in and unmute yourself. Remember to please introduce yourself and give us your address. And since you're here, I'm not going to bother reading your email, Ms. Caponia. I'm going to let you speak to whatever your concerns are.
Yes,
Mr.
and let
Chair?
me put the video on also. There we go. I think I'm live streaming now.
Yes, you are. Welcome. Good to see you.
Okay, thank you, thank you.
Excuse me,
I'm,
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Before Ms. Caponia speaks, which I fully respect and wish her to, I just want to make sure that we actually have the proper care and attention of Mr. Mann and also Mr. Moskowitz, because these comments that she's going to make, directly affect, their property. And I see that they're back with us. So I return to you, Mr. Chair.
Right. So Ms. Caponia, if you would state your name and your address, please, for the record.
yes, I'm Elizabeth Caponia, 27 Highland Terrace, and I'm also a town meeting member. And I have been dealing with this noise with these dumpsters for years now. I don't know if it's 5 years or 10 years. It's been in perpetuity. And last month I happened to be home when they were being serviced. And it went on this ritual went on for 20 minutes. I don't know what they're trying to get out of them, like the last sticky little item. And it was just pounding noise. And then they slammed them down on the ground for some reason. And it was so violent. The house shook. And I'm like maybe 5-6 houses away. So this is definitely deafening and it's very disturbing. And in the fact that these dumpsters have been illegal for so long, we've been always querying about this and asking, is they legal? Are they not legal? And I think it would be sending the wrong message to approve this location for these dumpsters, because it would just be rewarding breaking the law and having an illegal situation. So I think the best way to deal with this, because obviously these dumpsters are needed, is one of the 2 proposals that were made to make a little bit of additional room around the present structure, or I forget if it's Lee Newman that proposed this, to move it closest to the parking spot, closest to Second Avenue and the Robert Schlager property line. So,
That's what I was suggesting.
yeah, okay, thank you, yes.
Mr. Moskowitz, when were these dumpsters installed?
I don't know exactly sure, but it had to be soon. I think we opened in 2006. Took a little while to fill up all the spaces, so it was probably a year after that. So 2007 or 2008, 2007 probably.
So these cardboard dumpsters have been here for 15 years?
Right, and it wasn't till it was recently brought to my attention that I knew that it was an issue. This was not brought to my attention previously.
Ms. Capone, do you know whether people had complained to the building commissioner about this?
Well, one of the problems we have with, and you know, I've been a town meeting member now, this is my third term, so now I understand more how things work. But when you're just an average.
There's a learning curve.
Yeah. So when you're just an average citizen, you really don't know who to complain to. And usually the first choice of complaint is calling the police. And I assume at that point, then the police relays the information to whoever the property owner is. I assume, I don't know. But that's how most people will complain. Then other people are told, well, it's a dumpster issue. You need to call the health department. And then the health department says, no, you have to call the building department. And then, you know, it goes back and forth and it gets nowhere. So over the years, I have actually, you know, found out Mike Moskowitz's email address. So we've had a lot of conversations, Mike, and I've alerted you to a lot of problems. And I must say, Mike is helpful as much as he can be when I alert him to things.
That's good.
That's how I've developed this, just knowing his
Thank you.
address.
Right, she has reached out to me, but I just want to say that I've never received an email regarding those dumpsters. Most of your emails have been related to the truck noise, and I've checked into it and reported back to you about certain events you thought went on in the middle of the night. But that's, you know, that's where it is.
Anything else, Ms. Capone?
No, I think that sums it up. And I am happy that Mr. Moskowitz will not be placing the construction dumpsters right next to the property line of the homes, because the last one that was there, the guys started throwing objects, all sorts of metallic objects into it at 5:30 in the morning. And then I finally swung around with my car and I says, what are you doing? And he says, I got to do my work. And that's when I called the police. But this is the kind of stuff we've been subjected to over the years. It just never stops. If one issue is controlled, then another one crops up. It's a non-ending thing. So if he can make, you know, if it can be ascertained that this is going to be a new rule or whatever, a requirement that any construction dumpsters really need to be by Second Avenue and not next to the homes, I think that'll go a long way towards making our neighborhood a little bit more peaceful. And I would be very thankful for that.
And I also,
May I ask a question, Paul?
I just want to make a comment first, Marty, and then I'll get to you. I want to remind Mr. Moskowitz and Mr. Mann that we do have a noise bylaw in our town. I believe it starts at either 7 or 7:30. So when you do have tenants moving in or out, there shouldn't be any construction going on before the hour that our noise bylaw allows. I mean, maybe work can be done inside the building, but certainly nothing that would create noise outside the building to disturb the neighbors.
Sure. I agree with you. And all our contracts with contractors state they cannot start work before a certain period of time, whether it's 7 or 8, I forget what we put in there, whatever the town requires. And
Yep.
And I'm not trying to go tit for tat, but you know, no one ever notified me that workers were working at 5:30. I just find that hard to believe. But It's possible. And, you know, there have been other reported noises, truck noises in the middle of the night, thinking that the dumpster was being emptied. And we checked our security cameras that were operating at that time. And, you know, there happened to be a random truck that stopped in our parking lot to whatever, rest. And whenever there's been an issue of thinking that the dumpster was emptied early, I checked with the trash company. They have a GPS on all their trucks and they know exactly what time they're there. And except for in the very beginning in 2006 or 2007, you know, there was an issue with them picking it up too early, but it's not been an issue as far as I know for the last 14 years.
Okay. Marty, you have the
Yeah,
floor.
I just wanted to ask Mr. Moskowitz, who said that the construction dumpster would not be near the residences. Can you show us where you have in
Yep.
mind?
If you can put the site plan back up.
Yep.
There, one moment.
Okay, so you make it a little bigger.
No problem. Bigger
Okay,
than that?
so who's ever got the cursor? You see the row of trees here on the right? No, that abuts. Move the cursor. Yes. So any of these spots along there, we won't put the dumpster in. I don't want to agree to only put them along Second Ave. That's a highly trafficked area with pedestrians and vehicles, because as somebody mentioned, they all want to park right outside Panera. And I think that's an unsafe location. So we can either put it along Schlager's property line or two spots in the middle here. But I can't agree to only put them on Second Ave. But I can agree to take them, not put them in these spots that abut the, yes, right there. Yep.
Are there houses along that property line?
Yes,
So if you could be as far away from the houses as possible, either in the middle or along the property line with Schlager, I think that would be better.
yeah, that's not a problem. I just, Second Ave, I don't think is.
Yeah, I understand.
One other note, just to clarify an earlier comment. I've now changed the shape and the size of the rectangle to match the rectangle where the dumpster is, and where I think I showed it over here, taking up to 3 or 4 spaces. It seems to measure in at 2 spaces. So it's less than what I think I originally said, if it was a permanent location was here for the dumpster.
Well, I think, I don't think that we can, that red rectangle is to scale, either one of them, but I think we know what did we say the dimension was 11
By 16.
Yeah, so we can tell from that. I think these spaces are not, 9 by 18, 9 by 20, something of that order. So you're right. It would probably take up 2 spaces. That sounds right.
Okay,
That's what we'd need the further waiver for.
correct.
Yeah. And again, I'm happy to amend the 2 pending special permit applications for that.
And the construction dumpster, Mr. Moskowitz, is probably going to be there for, what would you guess, a couple months?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, let's see if any other participants have their hands raised. Patricia Baker has her hand raised, Alex, if you would bring Ms. Baker over.
Let me start the video. I think I almost lost you. Hi, I'm Patricia Baker, 30 Highland Terrace, across from Elizabeth. Thank you very much. I think we're headed in the right direction. I guess my first question originally was, the title of this item is a minor modification. And it seems as though everything is minimized in front of the board in terms of, well, it's a minor modification. Well, I didn't know, I'm not aware that you can have a minor modification to something that was not permitted, and that's illegal. So that was my first question when I got the agenda. The second thing is, I just learned with the as-built, there was something else minimized, and that's the neighborhood was wiped out. So when the as-built was probably approved, no one was really aware that there was houses that, you know, it was a dense, very dense neighborhood, like all of a sudden the neighborhood disappeared. So it may have been, you know, it's just easy to overlook the neighborhood. The third thing is, I think Elizabeth was asked the question about, you know, had people complained in the past? Well, I moved into the neighborhood. I bought a house a few years ago. I had no idea that that was illegal. I just thought it was part of the plan, the original plan, to have that fencing. And I imagine that the fencing also is illegal, especially a high fence. Don't you have to be permitted for fences beside where you're putting dumpsters? It's my question. So I never complained because I thought, well, I'm moving in the neighborhood and that's just the way it is. Until I came to my first meeting and realized that there was no permission for that corral and for the dumpsters. I appreciate, Mr. Moskowitz, that you were, you know, apologizing to say you didn't realize that. But being in real estate, you've probably been in real estate a long time. I would imagine that, I don't know, I don't want to be accusatory at all, but I was in another town. I was on a board, I was on a historic commission, and things were slipped in all the time. You would approve one thing, and then other things were slipped in. It's just the way of the world. So my question is, well, I guess it was a statement. I do appreciate listening to everyone, that I think we are moving in the right direction. And I want to thank you. I want to thank the planning board for that, being very sensitive to the neighborhood. And I know it's unusual that a neighborhood is set right in the middle of a commercial space, but I think it's important that these dumpsters are moved, because depending upon what happens in the March meeting, if any food is going to be sold, which I hope it is not, in the Frank Webb building, then there's a problem. Especially my biggest fear is rats, because we know there are rats all the way up in Newton with restaurants. And we have to keep this area as pristine as possible. And I really hope that food stays on the other side. And that's what I wanted to say now, but I want to thank the board for this discussion.
Thank you, Ms. Baker. I'll try to address the question of minor modifications. When something appears to be so minor, which, first of all, we will take a vote once we're done as to whether or not we're accepting this as a minor modification or whether we require a full hearing. That's not determined. That's not determined until after we've had the presentation. The legal difference is that as opposed to a full hearing for a formal amendment, with the minor modification, the filing fee is less. We don't require the publication of a notice, which saves time and also expense to the applicant, and we're sensitive to those issues. So we try to accommodate where it is what might be considered a minor change, to allow that. But you notice that even though with the minor modification, we don't publish a notice, we did send notice out to the neighbors so that they knew that this hearing was taking place. And we are following the proceeding of a hearing to let the neighbors speak, to let the general public speak. So although it's labeled a minor modification, we're not treating it totally as something different from an amendment that has a formal hearing. Lee, if I may ask you to address the issue about whether the fence needed permitting or whether that's something that's allowed by our bylaw as of right, I'd appreciate it.
I had to go back and check the plan. I think that the perimeter fence was approved as a function of the original site plan approval, but the actual corral that was created here was not part of that approval. But again, I'd have to go back and look at the actual approved documents to be able to accurately answer that question.
So you think that the fence would have required approval? It's not something that they could have put up as an as-of right fence?
I'm operating by memory in terms of what was on the submitted site plan at the time the planning board considered it, 15 years ago. And my memory was that there was a fence that was put along the boundary to buffer the neighborhood, which was part of the original site plan approval. But I think that was then augmented by this corral. And Mike, maybe you could speak to that. I have to go back and look at the drawings. But that's what my memory is.
Right. The fence of the corral was not on the original site plan. Is that what you're asking me?
Yes.
But what about the perimeter fence?
The perimeter fence,
approval?
Yes. The perimeter
was.
fence, that's all part of the original site plan approval.
Okay. Ms. Baker, did you have other questions that you would like us to answer? There was a lot there and I didn't write anything down.
No, I appreciate everything that you have done and this conversation. I don't think I have anything else. As I say, I don't want to be accusatory. It sort of reminds me of the Russians in the Olympics where they were doing drugs, but they still got in under another name. Now the skater, like slowly but surely, now the skater is going to be in. I'm sorry, it was my grandfather's drug, but they're still letting her skate. So slowly but surely, you keep on pushing the boundaries. You start out with something that's not legal, but it's there, it's grandfathered in, and you push it. I just don't want that situation to be applied to this. So thank you. I'm all done.
I appreciate that, and I promise that we won't have an award ceremony tonight. Okay. Is there anything else, Ms. Baker, or are you all set?
Sorry, I already moved her when you asked the question.
That's fine. I'm not seeing any more hands. I'll give it a couple. Oh, I've got, did you just move somebody out there? I've got somebody named John. I don't have a last name who has raised his hand. So Alex, if you would bring John over, please. John, you've been moved over. I don't know whether Alex, does he need to do something to? Right now you're muted. You need to unmute yourself.
Yes, I can't do that. He has to unmute himself, and if he wants his video shown, he has to do it. John, we see your hand raised,
Hello?
but there you go. There you go.
Yeah. Okay, so what do I do? Hit the start video button or what?
Yes, yes, please do.
Okay, I hit the start video. How about that? Do you hear me?
We can hear you, but we can't see you, so that's okay. If you would state your full name and give your address, please. For the-
Okay, so what do I do so you can see me?
I think just.
Sure, John Negosian.
Where do you live,
What do I
John?
do? Press, go ahead.
Where do you live?
I'm 1101 South Street. 1101 South Street.
Okay. You could try
Okay.
clicking on the start video button again. Otherwise, we'll just have to listen to you without seeing you.
I'm trying the start video. Trust
That's
me, I
okay.
have 6 pages, okay? So I'm gonna try start video.
Well, it doesn't seem to be working, but we can hear you, so please proceed.
Okay, all right, let me get right to the point, okay? John Negosian, South Street, Needham. I represent and manage several abutting properties. Matter of fact, all the abutting properties to Panera Bread. I want to get right to the point. Mike Moskowitz is definitely not a good neighbor, not by any means. As far as how long the dumpsters have been there, let's just say, I'm saying it's been a little better than 2 years, okay? Just before COVID. Now, we can challenge that by Google and look at a map and see when those dumpsters were put in, okay? As far as rodents, there's rats. I have notified the Board of Health about it, okay? I'm surprised Tara didn't say anything about that. So just over 2 years ago, I reported it to the Board of Health. And then COVID started. And nobody was working. I couldn't get through to anybody. Next thing you know, I get through to Tara and she says, that's not her jurisdiction. And from there, it's been like a chase, okay? I did notify Tara probably 6 months ago in regards to the rodents. I never did hear back, okay? I never heard back what the conclusion was, okay? But trust me, there's rats. Now, people put food in those dumpsters. Even though there's a billboard of a sign that says no, people do it. One of the board members saw food in it this weekend. I actually have pictures of the dumpster Okay, hang on, upper right corner for the video. I'm getting a text here. Well, regardless, I can't get on the screen. I wish
Oh, we
there
can
I
see-
am.
we can
I'm
see
on
you
it
now.
I can't hear you. Okay, you're delayed. Okay, so the dumpsters have been there a little over 2 years.
Excuse me for a second. I don't know if you were on
Go
the,
ahead.
on the call. Hold on one sec. I don't know if you're on the call, but Mr. Moskowitz has conceded that the dumpsters have been there for about 15 years.
No, they have not been. That's a lie. That's a blatant lie. That's to make it look like there was never a problem with the dumpsters. I manage those properties. I take care of those properties. The fence, the plastic fence falls down all the time. You have to take a ride by. We do our best to keep our properties. This is Needham. We do our best to keep our properties very good looking, okay? All we get is the trash from the Panera Bread and from that dumpster. They come by on Saturday mornings with the blowers and blow it over. Now, there's a lot of towns that don't allow blowers. They have to have vacuums to vacuum it up, okay? They blow all their debris over the fence onto my property. Trust me, we know all about it. The fence blows over in heavy windstorms. And when we notified the building department, and because it was two things, it was the dumpsters. This is 3 months ago. The dumpsters, which they still never stopped, they kept using them. As a matter of fact, I took a picture of them on Monday. Both doors are wide open. There's snow on top of the dumpsters that are full. I have the pictures. You want me to try and send it to you? You want to look at them?
Sure, if you can send them. I don't know whether we can see them tonight, but
I'm gonna show you them right now. Hopefully you can see them. This was Monday after the snowstorm. Can you see that? That's the big one. That's the big one. The gate's wide open, snow on top of it. Okay. Now this is Monday, and this is the door wide open with snow on all the cardboard they're still using. This was Monday. This wasn't last week. This was the snowstorm, just Monday, 2 days ago. Okay. Now, no matter what you put up for a billboard, people throw trash in it. That's where the rats are, it's horrible over there. Okay. It's horrible. I never heard back from Tara. I'm sure Mr. Moskowitz was notified by the Board of Health, but we'll discuss that later. I got 6 pages here to go over. It shouldn't, the fence, we do our best to keep that place good looking and nice. The fence is a cheap plastic fence that blows apart, and they went and put 2x6 wood on the fence. It looks like a junkyard fence. They didn't do it on their side, but they did it on the resident's side. We don't want to see that, okay? Actually, would like you to take the fence down, put up an 8-foot wooden fence, okay, to hide more of you, because you're not good neighbors. I'm being sincere, okay? I'm saying it the way it is. Now, I just want you to know how dense it is there. There's 11 units that abut Mr. Moskowitz's property. There's 19 units within 100 feet, okay? And there's 29 units within 150 feet, okay? When those dumpsters come and they pick them up, they make damn sure every resident hears it. The house next door that's not on the as-built, which everyone was asking about, is 10 feet off the lot line. So that dumpster is hypothetically, it's no more than 25 feet from a bedroom.
all right.
The woman that lives there is a nurse.
Mr. Negotian, I hear you say that you have 6 pages. I'm going to give you another 5 minutes. It's almost 8:30. I'll give you until 8:35. I think it's a good idea if you would send your written comments, since you already have it written out. Send those comments to the planning board.
I don't have a problem meeting with you. The State House just opened up. I'm hoping that the next meeting is open to the public and I can bring them all there and we can go over everything.
No, we're not having open meetings until at least April. Because the law allows us to have Zoom meetings until April 1st. And we're going to continue to do that, but also if you've got 6 pages of written comments to make, I think it's a lot easier for the planning board to be able to read them and to digest them that way. And so if you can email it as a PDF attachment to the planning board. Lee, is the planning board email address on the town's website?
Oops. Yeah. Yes, it is. And John, I can coordinate with you to get that information from you.
Absolutely. Lee. Now, listen, Mr.
And
Albert, I want to make sure I get
whatever
my 5
pictures you
minutes.
have, if I may, whatever pictures you have, we would also like to see those. Email them to us. Give
Well,
us an
those pictures were
opportunity to
from Monday.
review it. You know, it sounds like we're going to be taking this up again in March. So,
Okay.
you know, we'll have an opportunity to digest it all before then.
Yeah.
Now, I've taken up some of your time, and so
Right.
I'm starting to 5 minutes from now.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay, I don't want you shortchanging me there.
No, I'm not going to shortchange you.
Well,
Thank you.
well, this is the most important part is the neighborhood was very involved with this building complex being done. And if you remember, one of your predecessors, Mo Handel, was on the board, and the dumpsters were put right where they are now in the corner, about 15 feet away from a bedroom window. And Mo Handel stood up and said, yeah, that's not going to happen. We're going to put the dumpster dead nuts in the middle of the parking lot, and that way there, they have to keep it clean. That was Mo. God bless him. He's a beautiful guy. That's where the dumpsters went. Now, I spoke to Mr. Moskowitz within the last 6 months. He was going to remove the dumpsters. He says one thing and does another. So anything that you do, you have to make sure that that's recorded and there's repercussion for it. Like he snuck the dumpsters in, anything he says. He told me he was moving the dumpsters. And then I had to call the building department because he never did. You know what he said to me? Mr. Moskowitz said, well, it's up to you. If you don't want them, we'll get rid of them, but they're going to have to come more often for the big dumpster. I said, Mike, that's what we want. The neighbors want that. That was 6 months ago. They're still using them as of Monday. Okay. We try to be good neighbors, but that goes both ways. And in anything coming forward, okay, I'm all for losing a couple of parking spots. You know, he's going to have less, you know, but that's the way it was to fit in there. If they need more dumpsters, if I'm not mistaken, he had that option. He only wanted the small dumpster, but then he went and stuck that one in. And do a Google search to see when those done. Mike, you can trust him, you know, I mean, in regards to getting the bills when those dumpsters went in there. But Google search it, and we'll you know, I'm going to try and do it. Okay, there's the banging of the dumpsters. Those are nurses that live in that end house. The first one moved away, and now it's another nurse. Okay, they may be sleeping during the day. They don't know. I don't know. Okay, let's see. As far as the snow removal being done over there, that's just one more thing I want to add. They do it at midnight, okay? And they pile all the snow in the left-hand corner abutting the neighbors. The closest part to the neighborhood, they pile the snow and remove it at midnight that night, okay? So you can bet your rear end when the next thing that pops up, we'll be addressing that. None of the neighbors want to hear it, okay? They can do it at 8 o'clock in the morning. That part of the parking lot's not full. There you go. There's another thing I want to bring up, okay? The Board of Health was notified about the rodents, this still being used. The trash being blown over with the blowers. I don't know why they can't. If he was a good neighbor, he would have vacuum sucking it up, not blowing it to another part and hoping some blows over the fence onto my properties. Okay. let's see, what else? The noise for the dumpsters, rodents, dumpsters, and I have pictures of someone at 10 o'clock at night using those dumpsters. This is probably 2 years ago. And he didn't want to be in the pictures. I said, well, cover your face. And he covered his face while I took his pictures. I don't know if I still have it, okay? But that's just part of it, of like to back up people saying they, and well, if this is going to be in another meeting, I'll bring up some of the other stuff. I think it should be extended anyways.
Well, yeah, please, please,
A question.
sure.
Go ahead.
Mr. Negosian, you mentioned that you
It's
manage,
Mr. Negosian, go ahead.
Mr. Negosian, sorry.
Yes,
You mentioned that you manage some properties on Highland Terrace. Can you
Yeah,
tell
I
us which
manage-
properties? Can you tell us which
What's
properties
that?
you manage?
yeah. I manage 15, 17, 19, 21, 23, 25, 27, 29, 31, 16, 18, and 20.
So were those all rental properties?
Yes, they are. Yes, they are. And you know something? Those people, they're transient. They live there for a couple of years and then they move. So they don't care. The dumpster's banging. They just move. Okay. They're not coming to a meeting and saying, hey, you know, we don't want to hear that dumpster. Okay. Everything takes a lot of time. They will just move. And in that end building with Panera Bread is a lot of rolling over, a lot. Every year or two, nobody stays longer, okay? Where it could be a really great thing. It's like the city, you can walk around the corner and go somewhere, you know what I mean? We were all for Panera Bread when it was coming. What we didn't know was the stuff, you know, you're the planning board, okay? And you look out for the residents. You know that the dumpster doesn't belong there. But Mr. Moskowitz is a businessman and he wants to get as much as he can, okay? And he wants to take from the residents. It's your job to make sure that he doesn't overstep his bounds, okay? The planning board says, nah, we don't like that dumpster there. They don't get the dumpster, okay? There you go. Mr. Moskowitz is just a businessman trying to fill his.
Mr. Negosian, let me stop you. I don't like the personal attacks. Okay, so it doesn't do it.
It's not personal.
Well,
It's
sure
not
it is.
personal, It's business. It's business.
All right. Look,
Business.
let me
The
ask you another
personal
question.
attacks- Go
Let
ahead.
me ask you another question. Those several properties that you manage, do you manage them for the owner or are you the owner?
I'm the owner.
Okay.
Does it matter though? It's the people that live there, and why should their rights be why should they don't have rights?
I didn't say that at all.
No, I know that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I own them.
Thank you.
I own them.
Okay.
Yeah. You know, and I've had control of them before Panera Bread. Okay. And when Panera Bread came and they took my fence down and threw it in the dumpster and promised me and never came through with anything, I didn't forget that either. Okay. But I mean, the only complaining you're getting from me is right now. Okay. The dumpsters are illegally been put there. Mo Handel and the planning board didn't want them there 15 years ago. And Lee Newman was involved in this whole thing and how long it took. We worked diligently with her and made it work. Okay. But we don't like to be, you know, Mr. Moskowitz told me 6 months ago, those dumpsters were going. Why did I have to call the building department?
And so, and you're telling us now, I want to be clear on this. You're telling us now that corral where the 3 dumpsters are for cardboard only, that those have only been there for about 2 years, not the 15.
No, it was before COVID because I started complaining about them. I called the Board of Health, okay? And then COVID came. So it was probably months before that. They could have been in for a little while before that, before I even noticed it. It definitely came when FW Webb moved in there, okay? That's what I,
Okay.
they came when FW Webb came in.
Mr. Negosian, I encourage you to send your comments to us in writing and the pictures that you have that you want us to see. I encourage you to send them to us either by letter or by email so that we have an opportunity to review them.
Yeah, I just hope the dumpsters, you're not planning on rewarding anyone for doing stuff illegally.
Well, if you've been listening, we've been talking about placing
I
those
know that.
dumpsters
I have been listening.
elsewhere.
I have been listening. I just wanted
Okay.
to throw that in. You know, I got a little upset there, you know?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, and I appreciate everything that you do. That's the job of the planning board. I have to say that again.
Thank you.
That's your
Mr.
job.
Negosian. Thank
Thank
you. We
you.
appreciate that.
Yep.
Okay, I'm not seeing any more hands raised. I'll give it a couple of minutes if people are less than a minute, I guess. If somebody else has any comments, would like to speak, please raise your hand. Not seeing anybody. Okay, Rick, did you want to make some comments?
Very limited.
Thank you.
Many of the items that were that were stated just now by the prior speaker, we would take issue with as a question of fact, but I will not go into any specific response. I appreciate Mr. Jacobs' comment. I quite agree with it. This is not a place for personal attack. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm just going to check one more time. Not seeing any hands raised. So I don't know that we're ready to make a decision on this, and where we're talking about needing
Mr.
parking
Albert?
waivers anyway. Yeah.
I was just going to say, Rick is proposing to, because he's proposing to move the dumpsters to an alternative location and to amend his existing filing to reflect that. So
Yeah.
maybe the cleanest thing here is for us to get rid of this application that we currently have in front of us, because we can't process a relocation of the dumpsters under our de minimis change anyway. And to close this out by denying this particular application. And then he can refile it as an amendment. Does that make sense?
Or he can withdraw it.
It makes sense to me.
Or
Rick,
he can withdraw it tonight and we can process it that way.
Rick, are you willing to go along that route? And we'll put this on the agenda at the same time that you have.
I don't have any problem. Mike, and I presume you don't either, to just, this is obviously going to be an issue that is going to be discussed in some way, shape, or form as part of our other applications. I don't have any visceral negative reaction to doing that. And Mike and I will discuss, whether or not we want to go forward with the moving of the location, as you suggested, Mr. Chair, or eliminate the three additional dumpsters in their entirety, and just deal with the single compactor that's there now. That's another alternative that's possible as well. And I'd like to be able to talk to Michael about that before we make that decision. So the bottom line is, I think that we can do it by merging this issue into an amendment to the two other pending applications. I do not object to that.
Okay. Adam, did you want to say something?
Yeah, we still have for over 60 days non-compliance with a specific direction from the building commissioner. And we may not meet on this for another month. That'll be 90 days. And thereafter it may take time to, to deal with whatever remedy is going to be sought for subsequent applications. What do you want to do between now and then to come into compliance with the December 10 letter from the building commissioner?
I'll stop the use of the cardboard dumpsters and we'll use the main compactor. It's gonna, instead of emptied twice a week, it's gonna have to be emptied probably 4 or 5 times a week. But
Well-
if that's the planning board's wish, I can put that into effect in the next day or two and stop the cardboard dumpsters.
Can you also put locks, Mike, on the cardboard dumpsters? So there's nobody.
Well,
use it?
I'm gonna eliminate them.
You're gonna just.
Yeah,
take
but-
them out? Okay,
Well,
We'll take them,
if
we'll take
that's-
them away, Marty.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. We'll take them away.
Okay, understood.
Okay,
Thank you.
I might also suggest, if there is that person that returns to, to improperly do their own dumping on your property, even after those dumpsters are removed, you may want to put a lock on that fence.
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah,
as well.
we can put that into effect.
Okay, so then, is there then a request, to withdraw this application without prejudice?
So requested.
Okay,
Thank
you'll
you.
give me something in writing that the board could vote to accept it, then I can file that with the town clerk.
I will.
Can we take a vote on that as an oral motion?
Yes,
even
why don't you
without
take a
the
vote
record?
to allow him to withdraw it without prejudice, conditioned upon his getting us a letter within the next 7 days to that effect.
So moved.
Seconded.
further discussion? I will call the roll. Mrs. Spada,
Aye.
Mr. Jacobs,
Aye.
Mr. Block,
Aye.
the chair votes aye, it's unanimous. Gentlemen, thank you for coming.
Thank you all.
I think this was a very productive discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it very much. Take care.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item on our agenda. I have to go through some papers on this matter to get to the agenda. Here we
Emery.
go. The next item on the agenda is a discussion of the Emery Grover Building. Haven't had this in front of us for quite a while, but I know the town is planning to move forward. So we have coming in front of us, we have Hank Half, the Director of the Building Design and Construction Department, and Deborah Robinson, who is one of the architects, and Joel Bargman, who is also one of the architects. And they are all here. Good to see you all.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair and Planning Board,
Hank, good to see you.
and good to see all of you. We wanted to come with an informal presentation this evening to show you the temporary use at the Hillside site and the preliminary designs for the full renovation of the Emery Grover Building. As I think you all know, the intention is to, pending town meeting approval in May, to initiate some additional renovation on the Hillside building to accommodate the school administration move out of Emery Grover for an 18-month period so that construction, a full renovation can occur for the Emery Grover. And then they would be moving back into the Emery Grover building round about August of 2024. And so Joel Bargman, principal of BH+A, I think you may be familiar with them. BH+A were the designers for the CATH and also the Rosemary Recreation Center. And Deborah Robinson, who's the associate principal on the project, is also an expert in historic preservation, and happens to be a member of the design review board here at Needham, which she will recuse herself from when the project goes before the board. So with that, I think I will turn it over. Joel, do you want to start?
I think Deborah's going to take it from here.
Okay.
Okay,
And
I'll share my screen.
thank you, Deborah.
Everybody see that?
Yes.
I think people are familiar with the project, as Hank has said, and the timeline. We're in design on both projects, intending to put the Hillside project out to bid at the end of March, and Emery Grover to go to town meeting in May for approval for construction funding and to do construction documents after that approval. Oops, it's going backwards. The Hillside School, very minimal work as part of this scope. We're keeping the partitions that were done and other work from the police and fire. The largest scope of work item is adding sprinklers to the building and doing some work either repairing or replacing the heating system. Not really any site work involved in the Hillside project. Some plans just to show you the building and the fact that our scope of occupancy will stop and not include the modular buildings. So this is coming to planning because there will be a need to have an amended permit because there will be a change in use going from the police and fire to the business use of the school administration. Some of the site elements that might be questions, the construction fence, I think may have already come down. Parking striping on the building is shown here and is existing and will not be changed. One item that will be added to the site will be a transformer by Eversource, and that is pretty much the scope of work for the Hillside building. For the Emery Grover, I've got a lot of slides that show the overall scope of items that are relevant to you. I think what I'll do is go through very quickly all of the slides and then come back to the site plan, where I know you'll want to sort of discuss some of that in more detail. The overall scope of the building is a comprehensive rehabilitation and renovation. I think when this came before the board previously, there was a plan to do a larger addition in back. That has been eliminated, and the more recent town meeting approval is based on renovating the building with just one very small addition. The building will be made accessible. All the systems will be replaced, brought up to code, all new mechanical. We're looking to be as close to net zero as is possible for the scope of work. On the site, one of the issues will be parking. You can see from this slide, there currently is parking in front of the building. We know there's a desire by several groups to remove the parking from the front of the building. So in summary, for the site plan in general, we are keeping the drive from Highland Avenue through. That's part of an easement to the condos to the north. Parking at the east side, we are trying to maximize. For our accessible entry, we are using the north portico as the main entrance as it is right now. We will be adding a ramp and stairs on the east side from the parking. We are looking to have an accessible walkway from the west into that portico. The original center entrance will be closed off, so that no longer looks like an entrance that people try and get into. The south portico will be egress only for emergencies. Again, getting rid of the parking at the front of the building is a goal, and do landscape at the front. Overall, we are able to fit in our current plan, and this is still a draft in progress. We're showing 61 parking spaces on the site. Some of the utility work on the site, this will all be redone. the sewer line, for example, that comes out and loops around. The intent is to go straight out of the building to the west to Highland Avenue. So this is a plan that shows a lot of the site-related scope, the existing building footprint here. We are adding a small addition at the south, and I can show you on the floor plan how this works. The purpose of this is to serve the distribution and production department for the schools that has a lot of deliveries of paper and then their product, their books and paper printed products have to go out of the building. So there's a need to have an easy way to do that directly into their space. Here you can see how we have tried to maximize the parking on the east side. We have a dumpster to talk about. Currently, the dumpster is in this far corner. There's an enclosed fence with 2 dumpsters. We're proposing to move it over here away from the residential street. It might be in a smaller enclosure over here. We are, let me see, here's our ramp and our entrance. Pear, Jim, if he's, I think he's not on the Zoom, or if he is, he can let me know. A storm drainage retention chamber on the west side of the building. You can see there will be a line around the exterior of the building. The intent is to gather the roof drainage and take that out to the west. Currently, the thought for the east is that the parking will go to this manhole on the site and be treated there, and then off to the storm drainage on Oakland Avenue. There will be a path from the emergency exit out to Highland Avenue. That path and the one up here can be accessible. Those are less than 5%. In order to maximize the parking and provide all of the needed parking for the staff inside the building, we're showing fitting 3 spaces off of the driveway here, 1 other space over here. So we've really tried to find as much parking as we can on the site and still put landscape on the front of the building. We have bicycle racks back here. We have the required 3 accessible parking spaces. We have a provision for an electrical vehicle charger right here that could be shared by an accessible space and a non-accessible space. We can come back to this this slide later. There are 2 trees on the site. That's something that might be a topic of discussion. The one further to the west, we think can remain in place and not be affected by the items on the plan I just showed you. This one, according to that plan, would be removed in order to provide the parking we show. If this tree were to stay, we would lose 2 parking spaces relative to what we showed on that plan. We'll have a combination of pedestrian and taller parking lights on the site. Those will be shown on a landscape plan. Our civil engineer, PAR, has done a study of the parking, and we can come back to this if needed, but their square foot analysis does show a need for at 74, peak demand 74 required, 106 total when there is a conference in the building, in the new conference space, in addition to the staff and normal staff and visitors in the building. So we have a plan for providing for additional parking on both Highland and Oakland. And that's pretty much only for very occasional events when there would be a conference and additional people in the building. But we can show 67 spaces within a 300-foot radius of the building. Our zoning compliance chart, and this again is everything is a draft here, but what this is showing in the orange are the items for which we will be needing a waiver. The first one is the side setback, and that is over here on the south side where there is 20-foot setback. The existing original south portico of the building does encroach on that setback, so it's already non-conforming. Our addition does not stick into the setback as much as the portico, but it does stick into the setback. The required parking, again, PARS analysis for the building occupants is a need for 74 spaces. What we're providing is, in our current plan, is 61, so we'd be looking for a waiver for that. And then the last item that would require a waiver would be the landscape, where the requirement is for 10% landscape in the parking area, and then 25% of that being in the interior of the parking. We don't have the exact square footage of the parking because we weren't sure exactly how that gets defined. Maybe you can clarify for us for that, so we can put more information into this chart. I don't know if the line of what would be considered the parking would be the east facade of the building and basically this half of the site. We're assuming that's the case, and that given that we are not meeting the 10% requirement. Again, it's all about maximizing the available parking on the site. We are providing the required number of trees, and we are putting additional landscaping along Oakland. In addition to the trees, we have some other evergreen shrubbery to create a separation at Oakland. We are providing this island in the center that would be landscaped, but that would be the third waiver. Just to show very quickly in the plans, the distribution center and what this addition does, it just allows a delivery truck to come into this bay. It's not a real loading dock. A truck would drive in with pallets or dollies. They would bring the reams of paper into this building. We'll have a little scissors lift, materials lift to take it down the 6 feet or so to the basement level and into the distribution center. So it's just a 1-story addition that goes down to the basement. There are other changes to the exterior of the building. So these next slides just to show what those will be. Again, the ramp into the accessible entrance from the parking along with a stair there. We're showing enclosing what has been the open portico at the north to comply with the energy code to have an enclosed vestibule, the accessible walkway from Highland with a landing at the top, closing off the original center entrance. And that was generated out of a programmatic need to have more conference space in the building. So we're making that conference room. And then on the second floor, and again, this is still a draft, but there's a desire for a larger conference room for 80 to up to as many as 100 people. That right here is being shown on the second floor. And then the attic, which has been unoccupied for decades, we're looking to reintroduce as part of the occupied space in the building and putting some departments up there. The elevator, as you can see, will go up to the attic level. And there will be a need to do something at the roof to accommodate the elevator overrun for one thing, and for some of the mechanical equipment that we're thinking of putting in there. Some of the changes that we're looking into are for the whether it is a conference room at the upper level on the east side or some other use. These windows were always blank windows because that was the original auditorium when the building was a high school. So whatever goes up there would benefit from real windows. So we're looking to open up the center 4 openings here. Rain leaders on the building, many of these, as you can see, look like they were not original. They were not original. We will be removing those, replacing those, possibly putting some of those in new locations. This is where we'll be making the accessible entrance from the east parking lot into the portico, removing some of these other doors that have been added over time. We will be bringing the grade up at the west side up to the portico level. Windows will all be replaced. We will be looking at insulating glass. The 2 slides on the right here. This is an example of the product we're looking at, an existing window, and matching the profiles with insulated glass and applied muntins. The attic space, which is a very unique space with these exposed trusses and a skylight, that was originally the chemistry lab, we're looking to make into offices or a conference space at this point. And we're also looking to put all of the mechanical equipment inside the building and looking at this space under the roof on the north side as an ideal place to do that. We have to build out the roof anyway for the elevator overrun. So if we extend a dormer to allow for ventilation into this space, we can put our 2 heat pumps in that space, and that will be much less noisy than putting the equipment outside on the site. Some views of what that dormer is starting to look like. The elevator overrun in here, and then there's a need for quite a bit of open space for ventilation. Our acoustic consultant has done an analysis and has proposed an acoustic louver that might be used to help ensure that any noise from this equipment that could be heard from the condos across the way would be well below what would be considered a requirement. An elevation of that piece on the north side. There's quite a bit of structural work on the inside. These are some images from our structural engineer doing some investigations into the structure and looking at how to repair the trusses. They've done an investigation of all the masonry on the exterior of the building. That will be restored, as will the roofing and the soffit. This copper gutter will be replaced. This soffit, which has been covered over where it must have been damaged, but there's a decorative corrugated metal cornice soffit original to the building that will be replaced. Everything obviously for the exterior, that and the slate will be matched in kind or of the same appearance and same profiles. And our overall plan is to submit the hillside documents for your April 5th meeting and hopefully be approved at that point, as the expectation is to start construction immediately after town meeting. For Emery Grover, we're looking to do our formal submission in March for the April 19th meeting. We'll be going to the design review board. If there's a need for another meeting, certainly in May and June, we can come back to you for further application if needed. So that was my quick overview. We can go back to, oops, this isn't going back.
I guess I
Get back
should,
to the site plan, if that's the, or the zoning chart.
and if I may,
Yep.
add also, so I think we will be submitting two separate applications. One will be for the hillside change in use. I believe, Lee, that's what we had discussed. And then another application for the Emery Grover Building. And we are hoping that we'd be able to expedite somehow the hillside change in use, as it certainly is a much simpler with really no exterior changes to the building.
Yes, I think that's what you and I had talked about doing, and we were trying to look at the planning board schedule to see if we could get that done, I think ahead of the filing on Emery Grover.
That'd be wonderful. Thank you.
Am I hearing that you won't be able to actually start the work at Hillside until after town meeting? That you need the funding from town meeting before you can do that?
That's correct.
When is election day? Is that April 12th? Probably, it's probably April 12th. You know that Marty will be stepping off the board and we'll have a new board member starting with our April 19th meeting. So there's going to be a board member who will not be at the April 5th meeting. We might encourage those who are running to attend that meeting so that they can hear what's going on.
They won't be able to vote on a hearing though if they weren't elected at the time the hearing was held. I mean, they can't take advantage of the rule that allows a board member to hear about a meeting they missed because they weren't a board member at the time. So we're trying to work, we're working with the applicants to make them aware of those constraints so that they understand that if somebody's going to carry over during that period, they're looking at 4 voting members on their application and not 5.
Yeah, you may want to consider not getting started until April 19th so that you've got a full board that would hear the application.
Then
I
we
don't
would.
I don't think you'll have as much of a problem with Hillside. I mean, it sounds like the Hillside request is fairly minimal changes. But Emery Grover is a major project that you may want to consider having what will be the full board present from the beginning.
Yes, I believe that is, I'd have to look back at the agenda we had at the end, but I believe that is our intent.
Okay. Are the police out of Hillside now? Hillside vacant?
We hope to get them out on the 22nd of this month.
Oh, good.
But we're still, so we will be looking for a TCO. We've been coordinating with Lee and the engineering department, getting all the affidavits together this week, and hopefully we'll be able to request that TCO prior to Friday.
I know there's no accounting for taste, but in my opinion, the new police station looks really nice from the outside.
That's good to hear, and I'll vouch that it looks great inside too. I can't speak for this.
Do any of the board members have, Adam, I see you quickly raised your hand. I don't have Marty or Natasha on my screen, but what I'm going to do is make a move here so that now I do have Natasha and Marty and Adam all on my screen so I can see you. Natasha does have her hand raised. I'll let you two do rock, paper, scissors to see who goes first.
Adam, you can go first.
I was just about to show my chivalry. So I only have one question, and I appreciate the submission you provided to us in our packet, and also for the breakdown of the plan, both in part for Hillside, but more especially for Emery. With the proposal for Emery, under this, it looked like there was one requirement for parking at either 81 spaces and then a total of 136. And if you can scroll down one more slide.
So, and we do have Jim Jackson from PAR, the civil engineers, is here. So I can, Jim, maybe you can speak to the parking analysis.
Yeah, sure, I can. Yeah, so we calculated the parking required based on the square footage and the use of the building.
Sure.
And we came up with 74 spaces required. And then we also looked at the conference room, if we do have a conference with 100 individuals in there, and that added another 33 spaces to the number. So we would have 106, actually 107 spaces required if a conference was ongoing.
So what we have in our packet under the same parking is, it shows required 81, proposed 56, and I understand that you've updated it.
Yeah.
And then I see it says 102 spaces on ours as peak demand. And then it says total available equals 136.
Yeah, so what we do is we have 61, we were able to get 61 on-site spaces. And then we also looked at what was available within 300 feet on Highland Ave and Oakland Ave. And that came up with another 67 spaces. So we actually have 128 potentially available spaces, with counting the on-site and the off-site within 300 feet.
Okay.
So the numbers are slightly different than what was originally submitted.
And you're incorporating off-site parking as well for your availability.
Yes.
Okay, that explains it a little more clearly for me. That's all I have. Thank you.
Can you clarify for me what constitutes the off-site parking? Is it all street parking, or are there parking lots within the distance that you're talking about, municipal parking lots that are available, or how are you determining those off-site spaces?
Yeah, so Deborah just called up the plan, and it's on-street parking. It's in Oakland Ave and then also in Highland Ave. And we are actually adding one on-street space to Highland Ave too. We're improving the public parking on Highland Ave as we cut off the driveway that comes into Emery Grover Building now. We'll be able to add a space on Highland Ave on-street parking, which is counted in the off-site parking.
Okay.
So are you, may I, Mr. Albert?
Sure, go right ahead, Marty.
So I understand. Are you therefore determining that the off-site spaces, which are potential spaces, would, in the event of a conference, become actual spaces by what? You're going to put up signs saying no public parking here from 10 o'clock till 1 during the conference? Is that the idea? I mean, how do you take over street parking and make it available for yourself?
I don't think the plan is to take it over. We're just pointing out that there is a number of spaces in the street available in the vicinity that could be used by those people coming for the conference, but I don't think there's any intention to restrict others from using those spaces.
Well, then it's kind of an illusion then, isn't it? I mean, aren't those spaces used regularly?
We've been out at various times of the day, and our space is open in that area.
Hank, you seem to be biting at the bit to comment on that.
Yes, those are public parking spaces. I think Oakland Avenue is almost always empty except for drop off and pickup time at St. Joe's. And the Highland Avenue ones, a lot of those closer to the commercial areas are occupied, on and off during the day. But many of those near the front are actually used these days by the vans that come and go from the building. So a lot of them are actively used by the existing user. I think there are some additional public parking, street parking spaces that haven't been highlighted here that are within the neighborhood. But much like part of the whole rationale for keeping the use in the downtown area is to avail ourselves of all the advantages of being in a downtown. And much like Town Hall, which utilizes numerous public parking spaces within the downtown parking area, from time to time, people park there and it's publicly available. So we don't have, and the attempt here is to try to keep parking away from the front of the building, which was a request of this board and also of the Historic Commission.
Yeah, the difference about Town Hall is that the Chapel Street lot is, right across the street, and that's a lot of available parking. If you've got a conference that seats 80 to 100 people, do you have enough handicap spaces for a conference that's going on?
We based our calculation on the available on-site parking. So we did not, we didn't add ADA spaces for the event of the conference going on. Maybe that might add probably two more spaces.
Natasha, you've been very patient. Thank you.
No problem. I also appreciate that you're removing the parking from the front of the building. And so thank you for doing that. And this is a really thorough presentation. A couple of questions. Hank, do we have any environmental goals for the project that regarding site and solar and all that stuff?
We are trying to be net zero ready.
Right.
So that's difficult in a historic building, as you may know.
Mm-hmm.
So the attempt is to be as efficient as possible in the renovation of the envelope. The replacement of all the windows will be extremely helpful in that regard. It'll become an all electric building. So there will not be any, so there'll be all the heating and cooling system will be electric. If we were to put in, the only place where we could put solar would be over the top of the parking lot.
Mm-hmm.
And that is not currently allowed by the zoning bylaw. It also will be an expense which I'm not sure that the project can currently afford.
It would also reduce your parking.
And it would likely reduce our parking.
Yeah.
So
that's great that it's net zero ready. So I was just thinking about just goals for, you're talking about stormwater management and all of that. So okay, so my I know that you're asking for three reliefs, right? One is for parking, one is for the addition and the setback. And can you remind me what the third one is?
The landscape, the 10% of the parking area being landscaped, with 25% of that being in the interior of the parking.
And what
So we are currently, the parking you see here along Oakland, currently it's set back further from the street. So
Mhm.
again, just to maximize the parking, we are tighter to the street over there.
So
We've
what
had a tough
percentage
time
are
putting-
you?
Excuse me?
What percentage are you? You're trying to reach, the goal was 10%, but how much are you actually?
Well, that was the number I say we don't have now. We'll have for our formal submission. I
Okay.
guess we weren't quite sure if the definition of the parking area should be this east face of the building to each of these property lines. And within that would be considered the parking area. I mean, we do have parking out here. It seemed like the spirit of the zoning wording was not that we could include the whole site and include this area. But I mean, if it is, then we
Awesome.
would be in much better shape, obviously. So maybe if that's something you can answer for us.
It's supposed to come out of the parking lot, not to count the area in the front. It's
So the parking would, the line, if we're gonna do a real calculation, the line would be this east face of the building. And
Yes.
everything to the east of that. So we'll have the numbers when we come back to you.
However, Lee, quick question for you. This area here, I'm marking it up in red. That used to be parking and now it's being given up for green space. So that would not count?
No, I mean, the parking requirement was designed to create landscaping within the parking lot itself. So the standard that she's talking about is the standard that creates, I think, was the parking, a landscaping that was interior to the parking lot.
Okay.
That surrounded the parking lot and was interior to the parking lot.
Okay. Okay, so my question is more for this area here, which is the new addition, right? And so do you have any views from the parking lot that looks towards this addition? Because I know that there are dumpsters and all this stuff is happening here. I understand that you're further back here than you are from here, right?
Right.
So I understand all of that, but I'm just just kind of understanding this is the main entrance for most people, right? As you're entering the building. So, or from the back of the lot. So just kind of understanding what that looked like. And I'm not sure if you have a view of that.
So the only entrance to the building is at the north.
Right, but most people park here and they walk over. So they're gonna, right?
Right. We do not have a view of the addition yet. It's a one-story
Okay.
addition. And what you're seeing here is actually sort of a slight line here. So this part right here would be the addition with the entrance. This little piece here would actually not be part of the building. That would be the fenced enclosure for the dumpsters.
Okay.
So the actual building is a little bit smaller than it might appear on this rendering.
Right. So later on, it would just be good to see what was happening, and behind the building. And then my other question is, have you discussed this with the neighbors? Like, does the church know that there's some, an addition going on here?
We have not had engaged in those discussions as of yet. I guess we've been moving so rapidly on this, and the plan has been morphing and
Right.
evolving. I was kind of waiting until we had plans settling down for initiating those discussions. But
I think it works well in plan with what you're trying to do inside the building, knowing where it is. So it was more of just kind of the development of that, and then just making sure that, that there were talks with the neighbors about, this new addition being closer to the property line than, as allowed.
So this actually will be cleaned up relative to the existing. I don't have any photos, but there are some mechanical units in this part of the site and a lot of wires. And there's actually the electrical service is on a pole that's on the church property right over here. So one of the other things we're doing is moving that and putting the electrical service and a pole down at the southwest corner on Highland, and having that be underground. And as I said, all the mechanical will be up in the attic space here. So we
there's
are
less
doing the
noise and
addition,
all
but I
of
think
that.
overall it's much more cleaned up than the current one.
Yeah, it would just it would be good to see what's there right now, and then, the improvements that you're making. And I think it sounds like you're making, it sounds like it's improving in general. Those are my only comments. Thank you.
Thank you.
So what's the side setback here, and how close to the property line will the addition be?
Yeah, the addition will be 16.3 feet off of the property line, and the existing portico is about 11 feet off the property line. So it's
The existing portico is pre-existing.
yeah.
That's
The additional
separate. What is our bylaw setback requirement for
So the
that?
setback is 20 feet.
20 feet. Yes.
It is 20 feet. So Lee, does our bylaw provide us to waive it, to bring a new addition to within 16 feet? It's moving in 25%, 20% or 25%.
The bylaw basically provides that the addition should be conforming with the 20-foot setback.
Right?
Uh,
That's what I'm getting at. Do we have the ability to waive that? Or does the bylaw not give us the waiver ability? I know there are some requirements that we can waive and some requirements that we can waive up to a certain percentage, and some requirements that we cannot waive at all.
Well, this is actually sitting in an apartment district, so it's not like it's an institutional use where we had that floating setback. Why don't you continue the conversation? I'll check the bylaw.
Does anybody else have anything to say?
I thought we looked at this and it was okay, but let me just figure out the reasoning behind how we landed there.
I'm noticing in the attendees that we have a hand raised. We have one hand raised that says Spencer Lynn's Pear Corp. Now, we don't usually take comments from attendees on these kinds of presentations, but where it's a corporation that seems to be there, I'm questioning whether that's somebody who's
Sorry,
part of your.
Spencer is the other civil engineer from PAR.
Okay.
He's with us.
And so he's with you. So
Yes.
So we can bring him over, Alex, if he really has something to say.
I don't have anything to say. I was just trying to join the meeting. I apologize.
Oh, you're here. Okay.
Yeah, I would turn my mic or my camera on, but the lights have gone out in the office.
Points for being in the office.
One additional thing I guess I would like to say about the 10%, 90% parking green space bylaw. One of my inquiries would be, some of these sort of satellite spaces, the compact space and the 3 spaces towards the access. Do we get any green space credit for those areas outside of this sort of larger parking area?
The front 3 spaces you're talking about.
Yeah, I'm reluctant to speak to that without Jean McKnight being here, because she's kind of our resident green space planning board member, and I don't know how she would feel about it.
I think we now understand the parameter, and so that calculation can be made.
So since we have time while Lee is looking up the setback issues, I'm gonna put on my my town meeting hat and ask what you're going to the town with in terms of cost of this project. Interesting reaction, Hank.
we are about to go through another round of cost estimating.
Gotcha.
The prior cost estimates were based upon the early schematics and largely on a per square foot basis. The previous appropriation for design was 1.475 million, and the total, and we would be looking for another 19.4 million, of which some percentage of that would be through CPC funding. We don't know exactly how much, but the school department was requesting 6 million from CPC.
Mm-hmm.
But as I say, as you probably are aware, the construction market is not immune to inflation. And we've been seeing that and all the effects of supply chain issues and materials availability and so on and so forth in current projects in construction.
Yeah.
Really don't want to. So we are about to enter into doing that next round of cost estimating.
Yeah, I think we're all hopeful that the supply chain issues will start to alleviate by the spring, when you're going to actually be spending the money. But
this project wouldn't go out to bid until October, November timeframe.
Yeah.
Hopefully things will settle down by then.
Yeah, I don't mean this as a political comment, but if we're still having supply chain issues next fall, I think we're going to all be in a lot more trouble than we realize in the economy.
Okay, so the side yard setback, actually, I think for this project, it's essentially it's a reference. So when you have this property is located in an apartment A1 district. And so when you build a non-apartment building, which is an institutional building in an apartment district, the side yard setback under section 473 is 15 feet.
Oh.
It says no part of any single or two-family dwelling or institutional building hereinafter erected in an apartment, business, or industrial district on a lot having a frontage of 100 feet or more shall be placed or constructed within 15 feet of the sidelines of said lot.
Okay.
Wow.
Wait a second. No part of any. You have, what is the frontage on this lot?
Well, we have two frontages.
The frontage on Highland. Well, but what's the frontage on Highland?
I defer to Jim or.
Spencer, do you have that or?
Is it greater than 100 feet?
Yeah, definitely
Yes,
greater.
it's
than
definitely
100.
greater than 100
Okay,
feet.
great.
Yes.
So
200 or so?
as long as it's greater than 100 feet, then it's a 15-foot setback,
Okay, and it's going to be 16 feet out, so
and you're fine.
you're good. Good. So that's not a waiver issue.
Oh, excellent. So, Deborah, that red line can be adjusted accordingly.
Yes, take a look at section 473.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions from the board? Okay, Deborah, you really carried the ball mostly on this, so I'm going to thank you specifically for giving us a fabulous presentation. Very informative, very succinct, very understandable. And all of you, thank you. Thank you very much. This is very informative. And I look forward to working on this project with you in the spring.
Thank you.
Nicer weather, when we will all be meeting in a room.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you all
Thank
for
you.
coming tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving along with our agenda. Board of Appeals.
I have no comment.
I had no comment on either of the two projects that were new.
I think there are three.
No, the third one was a continuation. We've already discussed the third one.
Perfect.
So we got 24 Ardmore Road, which is an application for a special permit to allow one additional garage space. This is on the demolition and reconstruction of a new single-family home.
From a 2-car to a 3-car garage.
Right. Do I have a motion for a no comment?
I'm so moved.
Do I have a
Second.
Yeah, second. But let me just, for discussion, let me just ask Lee, is there anything we're missing here? Is there anything you think we need to comment on either one of these?
I didn't see anything.
Okay,
No.
I didn't either. Okay.
So we'll take a vote on no comment for 26 Ardmore Road. Natasha Espada,
Aye.
Marty Jacobs,
Aye.
Adam Block.
Aye.
The chair votes aye. It's unanimous. There's no comment on that. 473 High Rock Street, Janet Carter Bernardo wants to tear down her detached garage and rebuild the detached garage on the same footprint.
I had no comment. I saw the problem that she had based on the photos that were submitted, and
yeah,
it seems like a necessary thing. And she's not, I don't think, expanding the size of the garage.
No, it's the same footprint.
So I move no comment.
I have a second.
Second.
Moved in second. And any further discussion? We'll take the vote. Natasha Espada,
Aye.
Marty Jacobs,
Aye.
Adam Block.
Aye.
The chair votes aye. It's unanimous. Okay. Minutes. Jean's not here, so I suggest that we defer this until the next meeting.
Well, one of the sets she already redlined, so she's already
There's only
had input on that.
in the November 16 minutes, there was a question of the name of the company that David Feldman represented. He's the SVP, and this related to the Wingate discussion of proposed repurpose of Wingate skilled nursing. David Feldman, SVP of Real Estate and Development of, and I think if we Google search him and Wingate, we'd probably come up with the right name.
Well, I can find it directly
have
from
that.
him.
And so with the red line, I move to approve and adopt the minutes of November 16 with the inclusion of the name, the inclusion of the proper company for which Davis Feldman works. I will actually amend that. In the minutes, it says 7 p.m. and the name David with a D at the end, Feldman. And then the actual minutes itself says Davis with an S, Feldman.
Okay, I'll fix
So
that too. Thank you.
Upon that correction, I move to adopt the November 16 minutes as redlined.
I have a second.
Second.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, Natasha Espada,
Aye.
Marty Jacobs,
Aye.
Adam Block,
Aye.
chair votes aye, it's unanimous. What about the other? minutes?
We have December 8 minutes, which I don't think I see much red line at all.
She has not reviewed those.
Okay. so
I can add them to the
those.
next meeting if you want.
Yep, very good. Okay, well, that's it for minutes. I'm going to quickly go to correspondence because we only have one bit of correspondence here, which is probably what the planning director is planning to comment on anyway. We have a letter from Susan Opton, putting her hat in the ring for the for our placement of someone on the Needham Design Review Board.
Yes, I think the board knows that there was a vacancy on the design review board. Nelson Hammer resigned. And this is the planning board's appointment on that board. And the position really requires somebody with expertise in landscape architecture or in that field. We have been, we have advertised for the position. We have placed, advertisements in the paper. It's been out there now for almost 2.5 months trying to fill this position. Adam, I think, had some conversations with Susan. There was a woman also who had initially indicated an interest in it, who was a landscape architect that withdrew. And so Adam, I think, knows Susan personally. Mark Lusing from the Design Review Board has had some conversations with her. And feels that she would be a good candidate to fill the role that Nelson had on the Design Review Board. She comes with a background in landscape design. And so this is really an opportunity this is the planning board's opportunity to appoint someone to fill Nelson Hammer's position on that board.
Has he resigned from the board, or is this to take effect when his seat becomes vacant?
He's resigned from the board. There's an open seat on the board.
So the seat is open now. So are we ready to, it appears that she's our only candidate. Adam, since you seem to know her, do you want to speak about her at all?
So months ago, I think Lee had mentioned we had this vacancy, and when she did, whenever that time was, Lee, I don't remember precisely, but I remembered Susan's name popping in my head. I actually first met her because of my real estate business. I was knocking on doors in a certain neighborhood and actually knocked on her house. And her husband answered the door, and we talked. And I think he explained some of the work that they do in the business. And they showed me their garden, and I was just totally blown away by the symphony of color in their backyard, and different textures. They just seemed, the design stuck out more than actually their names did. And then the name of the business is I think Terrascapes. And every time I drive through town, she's done pro bono, I think, some landscaping work throughout town. And
she
again,
mentioned that in her letter, yes.
It's a beautiful job. It's as you approach Needham Center from the Heights, when you're making way into the town, she has a decent sized garden that she's designed and maintained. And I think that might be done pro bono. And she's done that and other pro bono work in the town. And I called her to see if she'd be available and interested for this opening. And she said that she was, and I connected her through Lee to Mark, and they connected and they talked about her relevant experience, her education, and her skill set, and her time availability for the frequency in which they meet and the duration of their meetings. And she's inclined to, participate in a more meaningful and direct way, into the town. She's a town resident, and I thought that the Design Review Board could benefit from her skill and knowledge and expertise. but I don't really know her more than that. I haven't had a cup of coffee, or as President Biden likes to say, have a beer with yet. From my own discussions with her and from the work that I've seen, I'd hold her in the same regard that I hold Natasha.
Okay, that's an interesting note. Are we ready to make?
I hope it sounds like a compliment, so take it, Adam.
Why do you think I was advocating?
I'm not quite sure.
Natasha, why do you think I was advocating and supporting you trying to get onto the planning board?
Oh, well, thank you.
Marty, did you have a comment?
No, I just said I'm convinced. I'll be happy to move that we recommend. Is it a recommendation or that we?
I think it's an appointment.
All right.
It's an appointment.
I'll move that we appoint Susan Upton to the Design Review Board opening.
Second.
We have, okay, any further discussion? Sounds like we can vote. Natasha Espada.
Aye.
Marty Jacobs.
Aye.
Adam Block.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. It's unanimous.
And this is to complete the term that Nelson Hammer has on that board.
Which is how long?
I think I have to check. I think it's another 2 years.
Oh, good. Okay. Give her enough time to know whether she wants to be reappointed in a couple of years.
Right. Good.
Good. Very good. So anything else on the report from Planning Director?
I have been working, Jean did a draft, just, on the brewery zoning. Jean did made some modifications to the draft that I had prepared that we discussed with Dave Roach and Amy at the last planning board meeting. Adam's given me some comments on that. Amy has also given us some comments on it. So my plan is to close the loop on that draft brewery zoning bylaw and have you look at it at your meeting on March the 1st. Which will enable us to get that on a warrant for the special town meeting and meet that schedule. So I just wanted you to know that we are working on that, and you'll see a draft on that probably by the middle of next week.
So what will we be doing on March 29th that we're planning a special meeting for?
On March the 29th, we will be
28th, correction.
It's
Monday
the
the
28th. It's a Monday.
Okay.
We will be doing the zoning hearing actually on the breweries at that point. And then Alex, and we have a number, really most of the night's going to be spent dealing with outdoor dining. We've gotten some applications. Alex, you want to run through the actual restaurants that we have applications from for outdoor dining?
Okay.
Sure. So we have, let's see, Latina and Farmhouse have formally applied. I do need to get a de minimis change from Little Spoon, which is next to Farmhouse. I know we updated you all on the Little Spoon will have to do a de minimis change to change their deliveries as well. But Lee, I don't know, can we move forward with Latina if we don't hear from Little Spoon, or are they joined?
Ideally, they should be done together. Let's try to make that happen.
Okay, so yes. And then I believe we're going to get an application for the Chapel Street lot. This is sort of going to be similar to how we did the Chestnut Street lot for Hearth Pizzeria. The Chapel Street lot going to be done by Chris Heap to allow parking spaces to be used at the select board's discretion for outdoor seating. And then at the same time, an application from the James for outdoor seating. And then it looks like also an application from Masala Art. So we might break some of that. I'm not, it's not clear to me that we can actually do Masala that night. We'll have to take a look at how much time we have.
Well, in the Chapel Street lot, I believe, well, I know that Bagel's Best has outdoor tables in the parking spaces. I believe Cook does also.
But those, yes. I don't know that Bagels Best is going to move forward with any kind of approval, but both of those in any event would not require planning board approval. They would be going directly to the select board because they are not increasing their seating capacity by 30%, and they're going to be on public property. So those are kind of the two big thresholds,
Right.
whether it goes to planning or select board.
But the
So
James,
that
but the James would have to come to us.
they would have to come to us. I think the reason is because of their seating increase.
Well, it's
Okay.
because of their
If
seating
my memory
increase.
serves me.
Private
Well, I think
property.
It's private property, but it's their seating increase, and it's the fact that their underlying permit, they're putting their seating on 5 private parking spaces that they own. But the town had an arrangement at the time when that consolidated dumpster was done in that lot where the James gave those 5 parking spaces to the town for municipal use. And all that was kind of was basically incorporated into the conditions of their permit. And now those 5 parking spaces are not going to be available for municipal use. They're going to be privately used. So the
So it's
select
very
board-
similar actually to the Hearth farmhouse situation,
Right.
where it's on private property, but the town
Okay.
had the rights to use the spaces.
Good. Anything else, Lee?
No, I don't know if Natasha wants to give any report on the housing working group and the meeting with the last meeting we had.
Yeah, we had a really good meeting with a committee where we kind of briefed on what happened for the community meeting. We got a lot of really good feedback. And so one of the main things that we're trying to do is address all of these issues by breaking up into subcommittees. So we had a discussion of how do we divide up these subcommittees, and everyone was going to get us information on how they thought they should be. You know, we were thinking about 4 subcommittees that could really dig into certain areas, but it all depends on how we want to divide it up. So that's what we're putting together. We also had a draft plan of the housing plan draft.
The housing needs study.
Or thank you. Housing needs study. And so just a draft of the current, all the conditions to date, basically. And so that was really interesting as well. So there's been a lot of work is going on. We have another meeting on March 24th, I believe, with the community to give feedback on what we heard and all the progress that we've done to date. So I think it's moving forward, and I think in a really positive way. I don't know, Lee, if you or Alex have any thoughts.
No, I think we're moving along in a positive, constructive way. And the committee has a lot of talent on it, and I think Natasha's trying to tap that talent by getting them to work on specific areas that they have interest in, to inform some of the policy directions that the town moves in, and informs the committee in terms of what those policy options ought to look like.
Right. We want to have a working committee. We don't want to have a reactionary committee. So I think that's part of it is we have a lot of talent. Let's see how we can use it. Adam, I don't know, Paul.
Adam, you have something to say?
I love the idea that you're making this a, working committee and not reactionary, and that you are utilizing the skill and talents that you have. I'm not sure if you're aware and to what extent this is factoring in, but there's some draft zoning rules for MBTA communities. There was that webinar. I have a sense that for the town, that's going to become an urgent priority.
It is. And I think one of the things that came out of the other night is that there's the plan and there's the work to happen to the plan, but there are a couple of items that, including ADUs is another one, that have a lot of that the town and what we heard from the community and knowing that there are deadlines for some of these things and for grants and for different things, those will have to take priority before the entire housing plan will be completed, is what we determined. So that the MBTA one is one of them. Dan Matthews knows a lot about, a lot of the people in the committee have some knowledge. I guess that's, so we're trying to figure out how do we run that parallel with the demand of priorities.
And actually, right now I'm working, I've been working with Katie King, who's the assistant town manager, and Karen Sonneborg to better understand what these new MBTA, what the guidelines are. There are draft guidelines that are out now that are designed to implement the changes that happened to Chapter 40A, Section 3. And so that's I think that was the webinar, I think, that I gave you the link to. I think Marty might have attended it, and the guidelines are out. And so we're trying to understand the impact of those guidelines on Needham. So we're working, right now I'm working with GIS to actually do the mapping, which will show us, the zones around our train stations, half a mile out. Is going to help us calculate how many units we currently have zoned that actually go toward what is our mandatory requirement. And then we're looking at the existing zoning that Needham has. For example, in Needham Center, in Chestnut Street Business and Avery Square Business, we currently allow for apartments to be built, multiple family dwelling units to be built, but it's done by special permit. So it's required at the density that the state is mandating. But our standard is a special permit standard. So one question might be, if we change our zoning to allow that housing by right, how many units will that produce, and where does that get us toward the threshold that the state is requiring for Needham? I mean, so we're at the beginning stages of mapping it out and kind of looking at the zoning that we currently have in place to kind of understand where we sit presently under zoning relative to their rules, and where we would sit with certain modifications, so that the town can effectively comment on these draft regulations. And the town's comments are due on the draft regulations by the end of March.
So do we have a need or a plan to change any of our bylaws with respect to housing for either this coming May town meeting, or is it going to be moved to October?
There's no plans to do anything in May. I mean, for May, for May, we'd have to vote it on March the 1st. So it's not going to happen in May. I mean, the brewery zoning that we're doing, I mean, to get on the special town meeting means that zoning has to be in a process by the beginning of March. So the soonest that anything will be done on housing would be the fall.
Right, but so I guess the question is, regarding anything regarding MBTA or anything regarding any of these priorities where there's, money coming into the state and we're able to do it, how would we go about it, Lee, if we have to make a decision before the fall?
Well, the MBTA stuff is not before the fall. I mean, the MBTA stuff is essentially, the draft guidelines are just out. The comments on the draft guidelines are due the end of March. So that's not going to impact us. We have time to respond to that.
Okay. One other thing that we also talked about in general is that, when we think about of affordable housing, there's affordable housing that is subsidized, and there's affordable housing that is market rate. And so the percentages that we have right now, we have to have goals. And I think that's one of the biggest things is to what are the goals of this report or this plan, and where do we sit with it? But it has a lot of legs. We have to also look at the infrastructure of the town. What can the town really support? What are the goals of the housing? And then all the different groups, right? There's seniors, there's people with disabilities. So it's really multi-layered, and that's why it's really good that we can divide and conquer doing all the research, so that then we can make really informed decisions. But some of the items touch a lot of different pieces. So it's a web of information that all kind of has to work together. So it's really interesting, and I'm excited to be working on it.
Anything else, or can we have a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
I'll second.
Any discussion on the motion to adjourn?
I'm impressed that it's just only 10:05.
Yes,
Yes.
hopefully going forward. Take the roll. Natasha Espada,
Aye.
Adam Block,
Aye.
Marty Jacobs,
Aye.
and it's unanimous. We're adjourned. Goodbye, everybody.
Good night.
Bye.
Thank you.
Good night.